fireworks night. We don't want to have the traffic issues of a bunch of people doing third-party sales in front of the gate up here on our annual 4th of July night. So we would restrict them from having a sale during that period in order to allow us, the city, come in and do its fireworks thing.
Okay. Well, okay.
But the main onus of the structure of this ordinance is to place the landowner, a single person, responsible for maintaining the permitting process and the fee process he does with his individual vendors.
And I understand
that way we don't have the police dealing with a bunch of different
I still think that sharp changes the people that are paying their fair share, such as the liquor stores and the dollar stores.
Do you have a dollar fee cheaper than 50 bucks you got mine?
You're missing the point. You're missing the point.
You keep
You're missing the point.
No, you keep harping on dollar fee.
If a person is operating a business in the city, whether it's a flippant one that can be on and off, or whether he has a place, an established place, I don't see how that person can get out lighter than the person that is being forced to pay by the comptroller. My wife had a little old business here many years ago, and the comptroller like to eat her alive. And she had to pay, and she sold the same thing as like flea markets, except she rented a building from Mr. Harrington. Right. And she paid her fair share, just like the dollar stores. And I mean, they made her pay. I mean, it was like, you know, so I keep thinking, why are we getting soft on individuals when they should be paying the same amount? Now, I agree with you that the owner of the property, he needs to maintain records or inform the city of who's selling on his property. But I just can't get that. I know what I had to pay in taxes on her place to the comptroller, and I can't understand why a guy could come up here and sell watermelons, or, well, let's stay with this, sell commodities from storage buildings or something else, and he can run with that for $5 forever. I just don't think that's fair. There's something about that that's not fair.
The individual vendors pay sales tax. The sales tax.
That would be sweet. That's an excellent.
That'd be a lot harder to try.
There's no way of honesty on that.
Well, it's just like the way Canton operates. Canton, you know, some people do, they pay their sales tax and some don't. But you might generate a little more revenue having the sales tax based on the vendors.
I think it would be harder trying to regulate what they sell, how much they sell.
They do too much cash business. We don't have any way to
business to try to track it.
But I agree with Pat. There needs to be some sort of
I think you make
provision
it
in
a
there for everybody
flat
to
rate,
pay
you
their
know you
share.
get that money.
So in other words, you're all saying that since my wife took the expense of renting a building and sold the same thing that they're selling up and down the street here, that she should pay, since she's paying the rent on the building, the lights, electricity, the whole bit, comptroller and everything, and if she would have moved out of that building and went to the lot next door, she could have got away with $5. Something's wrong with that, and I don't care what you say.
What we're trying to do is establish the fact we got a speed limit. Now, what we set the speed limit target for later, we can do is amend it. But someone is a gypsy type individual that drives up, unloads his car and sells and drives off. You cannot monitor his sales tax revenue because you don't know if he has a permit. Plus, you don't know, you gotta rely on his honesty. Is he gonna collect that X amount of sales tax? And if you translate the volume of sales it takes to make $5 from the city getting what, 1%, what $5 has to be 1% of is quite a bit. That's
I'm not talking about a sales tax. I'm going back to the fact, I'm trying to stress the fact that everybody should pay their fair share. If a person can come in for $5, in other words, I could come in and pay a $50 fee, and I could charge people $50 a piece to set up on my lot, and I only have to pay. I mean, I'll charge them the $5 to give to the city, and I'm $45 ahead.
What dollar amount would make it equal to you?
I think that everybody should pay the same. In fact, I don't even know if I would suggest charging the property owner. I think that he should be charged with an inventory of who is on his property selling, regardless of what this is. I think he should be in charge of that. I don't necessarily think that the property owner should be charged. I think that the people that he is leasing to should pay the permit fee, each individual.
They will in an indirect way. If the property owner allows it to happen on there, I'm sure he's charging them a fee for being there.
John, what if a woman goes up there with her daughter, her son-in-law, her brother, her 3 sisters, and they pay $5, right? They all can, they got a conglomeration.
Not
of
really
storage
this
fees.
thing up.
No, you're not thinking, you're not thinking.
Let me
I disagree with that. I think everybody should pay the same.
ask you something right now. How much are we collecting off of those people now?
If you set a permit fee for $50, I think that everybody that's selling should pay the $50.
But do you want to keep these people from selling at all? Because if you set it up too high, they're not going to come in the city and sell
Well,
anything.
then lower the $50, but I think everybody should pay the same. If it's $10, $20, and I don't see why the property owner should be responsible for paying a permit fee. I think he should be,
Because
I
he's
think
the
he
owner
should,
of the property.
well, no, I'm saying the property owner should be forced to keep a record of who is selling and what days and so forth on the property, so the city can see his record that he's made out and show the cops, say, well, I got these out here and this is what, you know, who's here. The property owner, for me, shouldn't even really pay the permit fee. I think it's the individuals he leases to
We
pay.
need to bring this in and
Well,
just table it until we can make up our minds what we want.
Well, does anybody agree with me? I mean,
I've got a comment.
yeah,
He collects $25 per vendor.
yeah,
He's
he
got
does.
4
That
vendors.
that guy, and what about the purse one and the other one? And what about the food guy? Of course, that ain't in this.
Oh.
But, I mean, you could set up 10 things up there by the purse shop. I've seen, what is
Mike,
it,
that's
snow
not my
cone
point.
machine or whatever it was and everything else.
Let him make his point.
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm just saying that as the owner of the property, he's already making money from them. And so, that because of the investment in the property and everything else, you know, he's gonna be collecting some money on it. And I don't think there would be anybody that would pay $50 to open a little spot, because like it's been addressed.
That's what I'm
They
saying.
don't make
We
that
would
much money.
reduce the $50. I'm saying.
To $5.
But Steve, do you agree? No, but see, then you're sticking the property owner with a more significant.
Because he's getting money
permit fee.
from them also. I mean, he's getting money by having the property, he's renting his property out. Okay, so he should be responsible for the property, which he is, at $50. Now, the vendors are gonna come in, and let's say they make $100 in the day. If you charge them $50 for a permit, what's the sense of them making that $50?
I'm gonna tell you how this is gonna get sticky. Mr. Harrington has some property up here that he's leasing out. Will this apply to them because the roof is over their head?
I don't know, I'm
Should
just,
they move out in the yard so they can get away with $5?
Hey, Mike.
Mike, I'm just,
No, I'm making a valid point, Lee. I wanna know.
No,
Should
I'm just trying to ask
these
you.
businesses that Mr. Harrington has rented out, should those people move out in the yard to get away with the $5, or should they pay Mr. Harrington $1,500 a month?
well, as a businessman, you're looking at 2 different processes. You're looking at someone that has inventory that they can't necessarily move out every day and back in. So they're willing to pay rent on a building for the security and the safety, to be able to close the doors, walk away, and not have to set it up. These are 2 completely different
You don't
issues.
see inventory from that bridge down to this bridge? You don't
They
see
set
an
them up in a
inventory?
couple of days.
You don't see a collection of inventory?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
but it's not the same type of inventory.
Mike, what if we change the dollar fee? Well, hear me out. Don't cut me off, hear me out. What if we change it to dollar fee? What if we change it to 20 for the landowner and 30 for the vendor, for each
Why
vendor?
don't we make, I don't care what you charge the landowner, if you charge him anything, why don't we charge all the vendors the same price? I don't care if it's $10 or
That's what I
20.
just said.
No, you said charge the landowner 30 and the vendors 20. I'm saying, I don't even necessarily think that the landowner should be charged, I mean, you could if you wanted, it doesn't make any difference. I'm just saying that the vendors are profiting from this, and when the dollar stores are in their fair share, and each one of these vendors gets away
All I'm asking
scot-free.
you is, this
And they could be selling stuff at those garage sales that are being sold at the dollar store, and that is hindering the dollar store's sale of that commodity because the vendor on the street can sell it for $5 when that store is operating on a $1 million-plus budget.
Say you charge them all $20, charge you $20 for owning it, and every vendor you have up there, you charge them $20
That
for
sounds
owning
good.
it.
That sounds
Okay,
good.
That sounds
listen,
good.
let me finish. If you do that, is that still not gonna take advantage of the dollar store that has to pay the sales tax also?
No, because they are actually paying something like that point instead of $5.
killed that dog.
Well, then you're talking about a dollar amount, and that's all he asked you for.
I am talking
an
about
hour
dollar
ago,
amount.
you know?
I'm making the playing
Hey,
field
Let's
level.
go with $20.
20
Would you
bucks.
be happy with 20
20
bucks?
and 20, let's
Sounds
go.
good to me.
Let's go, 20 and
I don't
20.
care what price it is, as long as it's the same.
Well, you do care, because $5 you weren't happy with.
No. No.
Is that made for this?
Well, what's
if
your-
we go to
what's your
20?
suggestion?
Can I have a show of hands?
No, wait, I wanna make a point.
I want to know what your suggestion is, rather than being arbitrary with my suggestion.
I'm not arbitrary, I'm saying that you've gone on for an hour now.
Well, let's
and
hear
haven't
your
really
rendition and we
made
might
a
go
point.
for
it.
I just said, why don't we charge?
And I have a right to speak, don't I?
May
So
I?
give me your rendition of what you think we should do.
Okay, Mr. Aubuchon, if you will shut up for 5 minutes, I will.
Well, you don't have to be so rude, just give me
Well,
your
I'm
rendition,
gonna
okay?
Give you right back what I'm getting,
Yeah, I didn't
okay?
tell you to shut up, so
No,
don't tell me,
You
okay?
didn't, yeah, you did.
Okay?
What
No, I
I'm
didn't tell you to
saying,
shut up.
would you please shut up now?
There, you said it again.
Okay, with a please.
Oh,
How about $20 to the vendor, to the landowner, and $20 for everybody that sells on it? Would that make you happy?
it would be more fair. The dollar amount is
Hey,
insignificant.
You can't get a straight answer.
No, I'm just saying, it would be more fair than charging
Can we take
50
a vote?
and
Well,
5.
that was my
Let's take a
rendition.
vote.
of it.
Before we do, let me make a point here that everybody seems to be overlooking. The individual that drives up and unloads a vehicle, you cannot attach any issue to him if he drives off without paying a permit. If you come up and say, where's your permit? He's been conducting business for all day, and our policeman drives up and says, where's your permit? I don't have one. He says, well, okay, we'll give you a ticket. That ticket cannot be attached to his driver's license. He drives off and we never get a thing. So the onus and responsibility of making sure everything happens for the benefit of the city has to be attached to the responsibility of the landowner, because he cannot dig up his ground and leave town.
Because then you can put a lien on your
So
property if you
his
don't.
position is simply this: I'm gonna let people come up and set up a flea market. In that flea market, I'm gonna charge them X dollars that day. He has to come into us, our city, and says, I'm gonna conduct a flea market during this period of time. And in this permitting process, we're gonna learn a whole lot about him, his property description, and every vendor and what they're selling. And he is professing to say, I'm gonna have this many people, they're gonna be here this long, and we get all our money up front. We don't have to chase down a vendor. We don't have to worry about him driving off and say, you know what, they're bad people, I'm not ever going back again. But we've lost that whole day's sales effort. This way, we get upfront money. Our policeman drives up and says, may I see your permit? And we have a little form here. And the permit is supposed to be on display during the entire timetable. This is 2 of them. And this is supposed to be promptly displayed. He just drives up, makes an enforcement action, and says everything's fine, hope you have a good day. We're not arguing with anybody. Did you ever pay your fee? No, the landowner's already done that for me. We've already got control of it because the landowner's exposed his property to the possibility of an attachment. Because if he doesn't conform, we have the ability to fine him. And the fining will finally reach to his ownership of his land by him conducting commerce without permit. And that's the main reason why you want to use their land property or the value, because he can't cut and run. And we had the chance to get something from the whole effort prior to it even happening. So we don't have to guarantee anybody out there or that they make money or not make money. That's all taken into account from the get-go. And it's just a permission slip. Now the idea of the amounts, you clearly may have a good argument there. I'm just arbitrarily setting up the fact that there's a speed limit on this road out here, and we're going to attach a value of speed based on the conditions there. So if a school opens up, we may lower the speed. If the school never opens up out there and we never have anything else, we may raise the speed limit. We could do the same thing with the permitting thing on the amount of money they pay if it becomes a commercial viable situation they achieve value for themselves from, and we take advantage of it, but not so aggressively at first until we learn what the market's going to do. And I know you're saying you want to compare it to dollar store, but dollar store is a fixed asset on the ground that has to be controlled and the state
Do
controls.
they have persons in a dollar store?
Well, of course they do, but what I'm getting
Okay.
to, what I'm getting to is
I
this.
understand what you're saying, John, I'm not stupid, I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
And I understand that that's a way to get some sort of a control over something we have no control over, and it would generate a little bit of revenue, and it would do a lot of
And
things.
you can
I
always
understand
amend
that.
and adjust it if you.
I just didn't like the pricing, but, whatever y'all wanna do,
Well,
I just don't think
Well,
that's
you
fair.
may have a good point. If it becomes a viable Canton weekend type thing here, then maybe we should reset ourselves as to how we address it. But that's for other council members to recognize and the future of the city to recognize. What I'm trying to do is add some sense of responsibility so that when we do, if we do, have a voting wet situation, we're fixing to have a whole lot of slabs out here available for people to use to conduct commerce off of. And I really don't want to see ourselves looking like Dogwood City. And probably what CUNY will if they see a need to.
I just know how other cities operate,
Yes.
and that ain't the way they operate. But I can see your point. This is a step in the right direction. but
And
it's not
this
the
is
correct
always
step.
modifiable.
And if I
Absolutely.
was the chain that owns the dollar stores, I'd file suit against the city for that. I'd say, you're selling purses up there, this person sells purses for $5, why are you charging me 8.25%?
Well,
You'd lose the case in court, trust me, I know that much about it.
well, one of the
But
things.
that's all right, just do what y'all
Can
want
we,
to do.
can we
Just
table,
disagree with it, I can
for a vote,
disagree, right?
25 and 25, make it easy?
That's all I'm trying to do is offer a structure for us to operate off of in order to give the city some kind of value in response to what we see will happen. And also give the city some kind of way of controlling it so it doesn't get out of hand.
Let's equalize the figure and I'll go for it.
25 and 25.
Sounds good to me.
Does that sound good to you?
Then
Can we take a vote on that?
Sure.
We're gonna vote,
wait,
vote this,
before we vote on this, let me, go to the page, let's get everything down on paper so we're all voting on the same thing.
so 25 to the.
I'll just make a note at the top of this, and I'll restructure it on the word process.
Okay.
What we're gonna do is charge $25 per vendor and $25 per permit.
Yes.
Okay.
And John, make it very clear to the audience out here that if they want to have a garage sale, there is no
Oh,
cost to them
I
whatsoever.
haven't addressed that, but garage sales, let me address that right quick. There is no charge for a permit. You're allowed up to 2 garage sales a year, 3 days. Mainly, what it does is just give a little bit of control if someone doesn't go out and buy eBay stuff and put it in his front yard and sell it on a 24, 35, 365 period. So we're just, and also it adds a little control to signage. When you put out a sign, it tells you how big a sign, how many you do. You have to attach a permit number on the back of the sign or place it where it instructs you to. So if we go by and see a sign's been out there for weeks upon weeks, we can look at the number on it, tell what the permit was, come back into the office, find that person and ask them to remove the sign. It's no cost, it just adds a little bit of control to the whole dialogue and et cetera about what goes on with garage sales. No charge.
What's that?
So now, I've changed vendor cost to $25 per vendor, and it's $25 per site.
I'll make a motion to accept it.
I would like to ask, before you make that motion, if we could address the audience and see how they feel. And what do y'all think? Are y'all happy with that ordinance? Would you be happy with those figures?
And what I was gonna say when we were talking and it goes on is that my daughter, my middle daughter, she makes bows. She makes hair bows for little girls, and she has to pay $25 to a consignment shop just to put her bows in there to sell.
Yeah.
And that's the least.
I had no idea,
Yeah.
so that's, I'm very
I think
open.
I got
25 is
somebody on
really.
my side, Mr. Lee.
Anybody else have a
Thank
comment
Hey,
they'd like to
You
make?
mean anybody did that, 45 minutes.
I don't know how much these vendors pay.
I don't know how much they'll be willing to pay, so you said you can always adjust it down if you have to get people back.
I would make a suggestion.
Well, a lot of it's junk.
To go along with this, have some permits numbered where if the people want to buy 5 permits at a time, sometimes you don't know who's gonna show up. It may be a day in advance, they may not have access to come in here. But if you number the permits, and then you sell them on a permit basis, if he wants to come and buy 20 permits, and then as he collects the money, he pays for the permits up front.
That's
If
correct.
the police go in there and see that there's not a permit, well, then they address it then. But this way, if you number the permits and he buys them in advance, he can expand his business even on Sunday afternoon.
That is an excellent idea.
That's-
I'll go for that.
Very,
You wanna put that
that's-
as
no, it's
mayor's
very
permission?
adaptable. There's nothing really against the actual application
I like that.
that keeps that. He writes down number of vendors and then multiplies it by the $25
That's
that
right.
I'll change to.
That's right.
And so if he wants to buy 100 vendor permits, that's his, then that's fine. But when our police walks up and says, "We see your permit," he has something to say, well, he has the ability to have 100 vendors. So yes, Steve, that's very easy. There's nothing really has to change. It's structured to accommodate that kind of claim.
But here,
Any other
I
comments?
like that idea, Steve.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate though, since we all up into this conversation. Let's say I pull up on Saturday in my truck and I unload whatever I got and I start getting ready to sell it. How do I, as the vendor, how do I get a hold to a permit that day?
Weekends are not permitted because we don't have a 24/7 city.
But you have the advantage, like Steve says, to have numerous permits. And first of all, if you pull up, you're having a personal garage sale. If a vendor, I mean a person leasing to vendors is going to be a property owner up and down these main highways. So he is going to be aware of this, and he will have in possession these permits to issue to the people that he leases spots to. That would not apply to you because you wouldn't pay for that permit to sell.
So the police would ask him to leave.
Now, on that note, if said landowner buys 5 vendor passes,
Right.
only has 4 on a Saturday, and you pull up on a Sunday, could he not call?
He could
You can call the landowner.
He could cannibalize
and
that
buy
permit.
whatever he charges for a permit.
But he's limited to 5 during a given day period. The number of days is cited on start date and end date. So it's
Okay.
not 5 permits he can use whenever he wants to through the year.
Right.
So yes, he could cannibalize that 5th permit.
I think that's a good idea, Steve. I like that.
Okay, what
It's
y'all
like
want
the
to,
forever stamp.
what y'all want to,
We need to vote on it.
Does somebody make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we accept this with the changes that were mentioned,
I'd like to second
and
it.
number.
the motion is second that we, whatever, all in favor?
Aye.
Now, is that a little,
Thanks, guys.
I know, we need to see you got, but you don't talk some.
I'm one of these fair
Okay.
people. Everything's
Next
gotta
thing.
be fair.
let's move on. Okay, next thing, elections.
We don't do that when you're talking.
I know you don't. I like I never sitting and listen to you.
Shalina,
The-
excuse me, this takes effect tomorrow, or really tonight, wherever you choose. I'll email you the change documents, and you guys can print out and have your documents ready in case someone comes in tomorrow.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, election. I put this on there purposely, so I'm not gonna rant and rave.
But do we need anything in the newspaper about these ordinances or anything to let people know? I mean, somebody out, they're gonna have a garage sale and they're not even
Good
gonna
point.
know that,
If you,
you
that's
have to have a permit.
if we need a city to pay you to do that, it's, you know.
Yeah, normally you run at least the little, when you pass an ordinance, you run at least the heading of the ordinance, that says that
public
it's
notice.
Public, yeah, a public notice that says that there is now a vendor.
Well, I don't think our police staff's gonna get aggressive on the initial
the
period.
homeowner anyway.
Yeah.
Well, we still need to do it in paper.
Right.
People need
That is
to
a good
know.
idea.
They need to know.
You me email you a copy of our ordinance so you can pick and choose what you want off of it?
Yeah, normally, unless there's some reason run the whole ordinance, which it just costs money,
Yeah.
then we just run a heading, and that generally makes it.
I'll email you and you can pick and choose what you want and use, Shalina.
So are we gonna postpone this until the publication?
Not really, because right now we can use the
It can be out Thursday,
Okay, well, that's good enough for me
Yeah.
then. That would be good enough to get your permits Friday, right?
Next, election,
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, number 8.
Mayor, your turn.
No, I want y'all to get
Oh,
through.
no, I really want you to go. I really want you to
Yeah,
go.
I really wanna go, but then I'm sitting there trying to go and you wanna go back to the other. Shoot.
Ms. Cross made a good point about putting it back. Go ahead.
Elections. Golly, boy, I'm really missed it. Elections. As you know, Tyler is threatening to go with. And Precinct 2, if I've got it correct, is also threatening to go with.
Channel 2.
Yeah. And if that happens, we're gonna have some things, we're gonna have to rearrange some things here in the city. If that happens. I don't expect we're gonna turn into a CUNY. I've looked at it. The last time we had cities that went wet, I think we lost about 5% of our income. Just be mindful that it could very well possibly happen. I've heard this, I don't know this for a fact, but I heard that Brookshire's and also Walmart are backing this these issues.
They are
I heard they're doing it financially also.
$85,000 for Walmart, $125,000.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I heard that they have people out there signing petitions and all this. And if I remember correctly, the ones that defeated this thing for the past few years were the big churches up there in Tyler. But from what I gather, they're not saying yay or nay this time. So, okay, well, I've got a couple of people in the news media up there I talk to a lot, off the record. And they seem to feel as though it's going to pass. So, whomever this administration falls under after tomorrow, well, after January, I'd hate to be in your position. I really would. But I think we all can figure out a way to make it work some kind of way. But as I was talking to the people in Kilo Land the other day, she's really worried. Pat's really worried. And the other one on the beer side, what's the one on the beer side name, Shalane? Pat and the other one? Pam. Thank you. And Pam says she's leaving, regardless. She says she's tired of it. That every year her life depends on somebody else voting, so she's leaving.
This is for beer and wine though, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever checked the percentage of revenue from the hard liquor side? Weren't you gonna do that at one point?
No, I didn't check.
I've heard somebody say they don't make much off the beer anyhow.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. When I go up there, the whole parking lot is full on the right-hand side.
Well, here's the thing what you gotta look at.
I don't think it's gonna be devastating. No matter
If you have your serious drinkers, they're not gonna stop in Dogwood City and buy some beer at the filling station and then come down here and buy the liquor. They're gonna buy it all in one place. Here's where the Economic Development Board comes in, and I know we don't have but a little bit of time. We need to try to entice folks to come back to Coffee City, to make this nice drive, to come to the peninsula. If that means opening the park back up, whatever it takes. We need to lure people back to Coffee City.
It's gonna take a lot more than that, Tony. The
Yeah.
economic development should be very instrumental in cranking up some business around here, but you gotta get the community behind you.
Well, that's true.
The only salvation of this city is
True.
to open this thing up as like we're talking about this venue city.
Well, it's just like the way Canton operates. Canton, some people they pay their sales tax and some don't. But you might generate a little more revenue having a sales tax based on the vendors.
I think it would be harder trying to regulate what they sell, how much they sell.
They do too much cash business. We don't have
They do
any
too much
way
cash
to
business to try to track it. Yeah, most of them, when you
But
have
I
a
agree
neighbor
with Pat, there needs to be some sort of
I think you make
provision
it
in
a
there for
flat
everybody
rate,
to
you
pay
know
their
you
fair.
get that money.
So in other words, you're all saying that since my wife took the expense of renting a building and sold the same thing.
fireworks night. We don't want to have the traffic issues of a bunch of people doing third-party sales in front of the gate up here on our annual 4th of July night. So we would restrict them from having a sale during that period in order to allow us, the city, come in and do its fireworks thing.
Well, okay.
But the main onus of the structure of this ordinance is to place the landowner, a single person, responsible for maintaining the permitting process and the fee process he does with his individual vendors.
And I understand
That way we don't
but
have the
I
police
still-
dealing
I
with
understand
a
that,
bunch
John,
of
but I
different
still
individuals.
think that sharp's change the people that are paying their fair share, such as the liquor stores and the dollar stores.
Do you have a dollar fee cheaper than 50
No,
bucks you got mine?
you're missing the point. You're missing the point.
You keep
You're
harping
missing
on
the
a dollar,
point.
no, you keep harping on a dollar fee.
If
of
a
$5.
person is operating a business in this city, whether it's a flippant one that can be on and off, or whether he has a place, an established place, I don't see how that person can get out lighter than the person that is being forced to pay by the comptroller. My wife had a little old business here many years ago, and the comptroller like to eat her alive. And she had to pay, and she sold the same thing as like flea markets, except she rented a building from Mr. Harrington. And she paid her fair share, just like the dollar stores. And I mean, they made her pay. I mean, it was like, you know, so I keep thinking, why are we getting soft on individuals
Well,
when they should be paying the same amount? Now, I agree with you that the owner of the property, he needs to maintain records or inform the city of who's selling on his property. But I just can't get that. I know what I had to pay in taxes on her place to the comptroller, and I can't understand why a guy could come up here and sell watermelons, or, well, let's stay with this, sell commodities from storage buildings or something else, and he can run with that for $5 forever. I just don't think that's fair. There's
So
something
why
about
don't
that
you
that's
have
not
those
fair.
individual vendors pay sales tax? Have the sales tax.
That would be
for-
sweet. That's an
That'd
excellent
be a lot
idea.
harder than trying.
There's no way of
That's no way we
honesty.